Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. So this week we have a fabulous guest. We've got Alejo, and he's born in Argentina. He's the reason I know him is he's a fellow member of the Board of Trustees for the Astrological Association, and he moved to Europe when he was 23. He's got tons of qualifications. He's got a diploma from the Faculty of Astrological Studies, a bachelor's degree in performing arts, and he also did the MA in Cultural Astronomy and Astrology at the Sophia Centre in the University of Wales. But now he's studying, now what do you call it? You're studying
Jungian psychology, I would say. Yeah.
psychology, right? Okay, so we're talking to somebody that's very experienced and knowledgeable. I've got no qualifications. I just hasten to add a few O levels, and that's it. So deep respect to all the hard work that you've
Oh,
done. So welcome to the podcast. We're going to chat a little bit about you. We're going to chat about astrology. I just want to add that you've told me that you firmly believe that once you grasp the essence of astrology, you are never truly alone, as the planets always offer guidance and speak to you. And you've said that
yes.
you derive immense joy from teaching astrology and engaging in consultancy work, sharing your passion and knowledge with others. So, when did astrology capture you? What was your first experience of it, and how old were you?
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Mary, for this amazing introduction. I hope, yeah, I hope I'm up to the level of what you described. Um, so there is a funny story, if you
Mm,
want. Like the
mm.
first time I would say I got interested in astrology was in a kind of game. So when I was 6 years old, I used to play, I was an Arabian wizard, or
Hmm.
I don't know if I knew an Arabian wizard, but I would dress like an Arab with this thing on my head.
Hmm.
And I used to play that I was speaking to the planets and to the spirit of the planets, and I was doing magic with them.
Wow.
Of course, I didn't know anything about astrology back then. Yeah.
Hmm. So,
But
did you go
I
out a
always,
lot to see the night sky? Is that what prompted it?
I
How did you
don't
know
think
that
so.
planets even existed at 6 years old?
No, I did know. I wanted to be an astronaut also. So I was
Ah.
very much into the sky. I was living in a city, so I don't think I saw the sky so much.
Hmm.
Yeah, and actually we moved after when I was living 6 years old. I was in an apartment that was kind of didn't have so much didn't have a have it had a very small balcony, so we didn't see the sky so much. In the next apartment, actually, I had a huge window, and I remember going to bed and looking at the sky from the window. Yes,
Oh, bless.
Uh, yeah, yeah,
Because when you're little, the things that you learn are quite restricted by your parents and the school that you go to. I mean, that you've obviously got an inventive, imaginative side to you. Maybe that's the Aquarius ascendant. They're all weird and wonderful.
yeah. It's true. Yeah, yeah. Because my parents were not so much into these things. I was considered a little bit. They thought I was always on my own world. They thought I was always a little bit strange. Yes.
Yeah, but that's the key word for Aquarius anyway. And if you've got that as an ascendant, then you're going to be living that part of your chart, surely. I mean, you're not going to be normal with an Aquarius ascendant. You're going to be
Definitely, I was not
different.
normal.
So you were born in Argentina and then you moved to Europe when you were 23. Have you any idea what month it was or what part of the year it was when you moved to Europe at
Yeah,
23?
it was 11th of February. 11th
February.
of February.
Okay.
I
Chiron was,
remember
I'm
perfectly.
sure it was Chiron was going over your ascendant.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you know my chart better than I don't know. Did you
Yeah,
check?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I actually I didn't know what month it was, so I just did the 1st of June because that's the middle of the year. So I just wanted to
Ah,
see what outer planets were transiting. But Chiron was transiting through the sign of Aquarius, and so was Neptune.
ah,
Yeah, so Neptune was retrograding in the sign of Aquarius. You've got Aquarius ascendant, but on that particular date, which I chose, which is the wrong one, Chiron was exactly conjunct. But yeah, Chiron would have been working there anyway. And Jupiter was opposition to your sun sign. I'm going to travel.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Jupiter was in Scorpio going through, as I use equal house, so I apologise profusely, but you had Jupiter going through your 10th and near to your MC, I think. So
yeah,
transiting, yeah, so transiting in Jupiter was about 10 degrees, and then you've got MC in Scorpio, so not far off. What else was happening? Saturn was on your descendant. Not going to do too much of that. And what was it like then? I mean, 23 is ever so young. And I mean, I'm no good at geography, but I did look on the map to see how far away Argentina is from Europe. And it's a long distance. Did you do it all in one hop? And what made you even want to go to Europe? Talk me through it. I want to know.
Okay, it's nice that you say this Chiron thing because I think one of the experiences of being Aquarius rising is the feeling of not, you feel like you are in the wrong place in the wrong time kind of all the time. I think maybe part of my struggle with my sun in Taurus, my moon in Cancer has to do with that, with the desire to be normal, actually, like you were saying before, but actually realizing that it's not happening. And I never felt very much at home in Argentina. Like I have kind of the fourth, kind of close to the sun. I always felt like this was not my home. When I was, another game I used to play when I was a kid with the little, we had something called Playmobil. I don't know if you had
Yeah,
them.
I've heard of Playmobil, yeah.
Yeah. So we used to play with this game with my sisters, and I was always playing a character of my character was living in Europe and was coming to Argentina to visit, and I was maybe 7, 8 years old, So there was always in me this feeling like I don't belong here. I need to find my place of belonging. So I think it's quite interesting that you say, remember, and I've checked these things so many times and I forget that I've traveled to Spain when Chiron was so active on my ascendant, because it also brings my experience of Chiron, right, which is in the fourth. So this idea of trying to find a place where I could feel like I belong, which never really happened in the end. But
that's geography you're talking about now. Feeling of belonging, is it related to a place, or is it, I mean, there's a song, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's Wherever I Lay My Hat is My Home. And the idea being that it doesn't matter, but the person who wrote the song, this is, that wherever it is you are, because your home is within yourself, it's not a geographical location, question
yes,
mark.
I've been learning something about that, and something that my home is the place where my friends are, where I
Yeah.
make connections that are meaningful. And it's not so much a physical space, it has to do with the people I'm with. This was what makes me feel at home to me. Yeah, not so much. Yeah.
So the first qualification you did was the acting, the performing arts, is that right?
Yes. So this I did in Argentina. And okay, if we want to talk about also astrology, like when it got into my house, into my life. So it's when I was a kid, I was playing like this astrologer. When I was 12 or 13 years old, I told my parents that I wanted to study Kabbalah.
Kabbalah, yeah.
And
Like, how did you even find out about that Kabbalah when you're that age?
I saw something on TV or something, and and I had friends who were Jews in Argentina. There's a huge Jewish community. So I
Okay.
had friends who were Jewish, and they all told me, no, no, if you study this, you're gonna go crazy. And then I got very interested in Islam for some reason, and I wanted to learn Arabic. And my parents, everything said like, no, this kid is going crazy. When I told them I was learning Arabic, they thought I wanted to, become a terrorist. Even back then, which wasn't so much like
Wow.
now people speak about that. And so anyway, when I was, I think 19, I got my first job. So and I was doing the performing arts degree, and I got my first job, and I had money. So I signed up for a course in Kabbalah. And there was an astrologer, and this woman looked at my chart, and I told her, I want to learn to see these things that you see. So she sent me to this astrology school, but she didn't, she looked at my chart, but we didn't really have a session. So I didn't really even know what a chart was. But I said, okay, I want to speak the way she. So I went to this astrology school, which was very psychological astrology. And I wanted, it was with the Kabbalah thing, I wanted like more magical astrology. So I remember I was so disappointed. I was like, no, I thought we were going to invoke the planets and these kind of things. And while I was doing that, I was doing the performance the performance art degree. So I finished what at 21, 22. It was 4 years. So 21, and I finished, and I came to Spain. Yeah, I said like, okay, I realized that I have, in my chart, I have the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Sagittarius.
Yeah.
And if we
There's
take
very
Uranus,
conjunct, exactly 7 degrees, both of them. Boom.
super conjunct, yes. And if we take Uranus as one of my chart rulers, this
Yes.
becomes more, very, very important, right? So I think this is why I always felt like I needed to explore the world. Because even when I was a kid, when we were going on holidays, I was the one who wanted to go on holidays to new places, do new stuff, like I was always kind of I wasn't taking risks. I was a good boy. I wasn't taking risks, but I always wanted to kind of explore the world. So I think something happened there, and I said, okay, yeah, let's go. When I first moved to Spain, I didn't move to Spain. I said, okay, I'm going to go to Spain for a few months, and then I will see what happens. Yeah.
So you're bilingual or trilingual?
No, I don't know if I'm bilingual. I speak English and Spanish. Spanish is my natal tongue. I don't know if I'm bilingual.
Well, you must be bilingual because your English is marvelous.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, you've
I've
studied all the studying you've done, though. All the astrological studying you've done is in English? Question mark.
Totally, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So you're bilingual. Thank you. You speak your mother tongue and you speak another tongue. Two languages.
Yeah. It's quite interesting because now I'm starting to get more sessions in Spanish, and I find it sometimes hard to describe. Like I don't find the right words I want to use because I'm more used to thinking in English when I think astrologically. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That must be confusing. Okay. And that's the thing, though, when you live in another country for a length of time, you end up having to think in that language. I very briefly went to school in Switzerland and they speak Schweizerdeutsch, which isn't even German. It's similar but not the same because it's a different dialect. And I was only there for a short amount of time, but there was a phase where I sort of started to think certain things in that language so that I'd then be able to ask for whatever they were.
Yeah.
But yeah, complex. Okay, so you've got sun in the fourth, home, roots, family, all of that's important. And you've also got Mars there. You've got Mars 0 degrees Gemini, boom, 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 which is just about to, on the 8th of this month, going to get smashed into by Uranus. Are you looking forward to that?
I don't know if I'm looking forward to that. I'm already experiencing that, I would say. I mean, after having Uranus going over my Taurus placements, which was not as traumatic as I was expecting. I remember when I saw that Uranus was coming on my sun, I was thinking so much like, what's going to happen this year? What's going to change? Like something, unexpected, something that I cannot see. So I was trying to think about what it was, and my astrologer friends were like, "Stop trying to guess what it's gonna be because it's Uranus. You can never know what it's gonna be." So I was thinking, okay, something about home, something about rooting. The sun rules my seventh house, so I thought maybe something about relationships. And it wasn't traumatic as I expected. Actually, it was quite liberating. Yes.
And yeah, because that's going to hit your Mars, and then your Mars is in opposition. What's your Mars is opposition to your Jupiter? Okay, so you're going to end up with transiting. Natally, you've got Uranus, Jupiter conjunction, and then Uranus is going to be in opposition, conjunct to your Mars, but in opposition to that. So, okay, so there's probably going to be a bit, but you do travel a lot anyway. So you have to come to, because you're involved in a number of different schools, because you're teaching at them and they're all in different locations. And with the AA, because we've got the conference coming up, you've got to Zoom over here. Do you like
Yeah, yeah,
aeroplanes?
yeah. I love airplanes. I was a flight attendant for 12 years.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So you can fly. Oh, that's the Saggy planets then, isn't it? 'Cause that's
I
governs
guess.
things like
And
flying.
also, Saturn, so if you use equal houses, Saturn is in my ninth house,
Yeah.
right? So people say, Saturn in the ninth, you're not going to travel a lot, travel is going to be restricted. And I'm like, I was a flight attendant. I
Yeah.
was living on a plane, basically. Uh,
I
so
don't know. I did a top because you wouldn't travel or anything. You'd take
I
travel seriously.
always use Yeah.
Oops. Sorry,
I
we
think it's
just.
important to remember, yeah, what Saturn is, that it's not.
Yes,
Can you hear
Saturn's.
me?
Yeah, sorry, we just disappeared there for a minute. Saturn's not always about restriction, it's just about taking things seriously. But you've lately got that conjunction Pluto and you've got that retrograde as well. So you've got quite a lot of.
So
You've
I
got a lot
take
of.
it
You've got.
extremely seriously.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you've got Jupiter retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Uranus retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Pluto retrograde, and Mercury retrograde. You poor love. You're working against everything all the
Yeah, but
time.
what do you think about this? Like, usually for me, when I look at the natal chart, I pay more attention only if Mercury, Venus, and Mars are retrograde. If the others are retrograde, I don't emphasize it so much. How do you see it?
That you're not going to be the same as your peer group. You know, your peer group is your
Mm.
outer planets, and there's going to be a difference to that, or wanting to do things not against them, but in a different way to them.
Yeah,
And
for
it
sure.
depends how far it's retrograded back into whatever in the numbers and stuff. But I mean, I've natally got Mercury retrograde. I flipping know what that's like. But then I'm the only person that's fine during a Mercury retrograde anyway, because I was born
Yeah.
during one, so it doesn't bother me. And interestingly, my supervisor is also a Taurus like yourself, and she also has Mercury retrograde. So they get the two of us together, and we were saying things like, "Oh, do you remember that one? Then their name began with a P," and she go, "Oh yeah, I think his name's la 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 la," because we can never sort of remember stuff. But yeah, she's a Taurus as well with Mercury retrograde. But it's repetition. The way to learn when you've got Mercury retrograde is to repeat things. Might not be able to do it just the once. And anyway, if you're doing acting ever, to learn lines, you can't just read them and then perform them. I don't know about you, but you'd have to repeat them quite a few things for them to go into your
Yes.
consciousness. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes. Yes.
So talk to me about the brightness that astrology has brought for you. So what difference has it made now that you've understood it? I mean, you're so busy teaching and doing lots of stuff, but tell me what astrology's brought for you. So how's that made a difference for you?
Okay, so it's been a journey, right? So I can
Mm.
speak of what I'm feeling now, and right now I'm having a kind of spiritual, very spiritual journey into astrology.
Hmm.
I think I started maybe more with a kind of a spiritual approach with this idea I wanted to make it more like magical and these kind of things. Then I went into psychological astrology, so it became much more secular in some ways.
Hmm.
And now I'm stepping back into a kind of spiritual, I wouldn't say, I don't want to call it spiritual awakening because I think it sounds too like I'm important, I'm awakening. But yeah, I'm having a lot of spiritual questions, perhaps, or insights,
Mm.
and astrology is helping me a lot navigate this. To me, spirituality is about what I'm discovering more and more, in my opinion, is that spirituality is about being accepting that there are forces that are above us, and all we can do is kind of, I don't know if worship them, honor them, but kind of spirituality, is about um, accepting our humane measure in the world. So there's something about submission, if you want, which is a word that it's very kind of controversial for us in the West, that we value freedom so much.
Hmm.
But I think spirituality is really about that, admitting that we are here and we are not owners of this place, of this experience, right?
Hmm.
And astrology is helping me a lot in developing this, in seeing this more and more how it's manifesting in my life, right? So
Hmm.
how experiences I have are actually manifestations of who I am really, and how I have become to believe that I'm certain things, but it's not the whole picture, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So with the transits, I think come this idea of um, accepting fate. This idea of, well, this is what it comes to be for me. This is what I am. This is what it comes to be for me in this moment in time. This is what I am called to do or called to be. Yes.
Acceptance
So
is it's a tricky discussion. Acceptance is the only way forward to accept where we are. I mean, you can read, I don't know if you have, but Eckhart Tolle, it's the being in the now thing, which everybody can sort of like, oh, well, that's not so important, but that's all we have is where we are now, the space and the
abs-
place. etc. I mean, transits help us because they let us know how long we're going to suffer under Saturn or something. We know how long the transit lasts, and we can supposedly predict for someone, oh, that next year is going to be this transit. You might find such and such, whatever, challenging. But I hear what you're saying, that astrology is allowing you an acceptance that things. Are you saying that everything is divinely determined?
I would, I
Then we
don't know
have the
if,
question about free will. Does free will exist?
yes, I'm not sure if everything
Mm.
is divinely determined, because everything, like, I have this paradox. So I would say yes, everything is divinely determined, and at the same time I would say no, because there is something that we do with this determination. So it sounds contradictory, but I don't know. I think this is the spiritual awakening I'm having. I'm trying to embrace both contradictory ideas, because definitely I think there's something I do with these transits. There are choices I make.
Mhm.
Uh, but at the same time, I wonder how free I am to make these choices, and yeah. And so my idea is that the divine, let's say, and we're going to very mystical
Go, go, go.
conversation.
Love
I
it.
hope
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like the divine wants to recognize itself. What is it? The other day, a friend told me this phrase: "I am an unknown treasure, and I want to be found."
Wow.
It's from Islam. My friend is a Sufi. Is a
Mm.
Sufi, and we're having this conversation, and he told me this: "I am an unknown treasure, and I want to be found." And this
Mm.
is what I think astrology is help us seeing. Like there is this other us, there's this other me that is wanting to be recognized. And I think the transits, what are doing, are helping us to recognize this other me, because we think we are something that we're not, right?
Mm, mm, mm.
But the first step is to accept that actually I'm here to service this other me that is wanting to be recognized. Yeah.
I love that.
So yeah,
A little treasure and wanting to be found. Sweet. It's the discovery of, because that's the thing I found a lot when I teach astrology, is when the clients get their head, what clients, students, beg your pardon, get their head around what it's all about, because it's very complex to start with, all these symbols and signs and all the rest of it. And then when they start to realize, oh, that's why this happened, or that is why I like this, or this is why I am the way I am. I am married to a Taurus. I know perfectly well that if I didn't feed him lunch, he'd be a jolly upset bunny. But he feeds himself, so I don't have to feed him literally. But you got to sort of recognise what is important to each sign of the zodiac, taking into account the other stuff as well. But I think it's the spiritual question is something that there isn't an answer. It's like that.
Mm,
It's not the destination; it is the journey.
yeah,
I wrote a book about Neptune and enlightenment and all of that, and it was just about what was happening for me whilst Neptune was transiting through the sign of Pisces. But I was trying to answer that question: what is enlightenment? Is it a big, or is it a boom moment? What is, and then if you are enlightened, does that make you any better than anybody else? No, it flipping well doesn't. But the questioning and the path that you're on, I think, is when one is on that path, isn't the destination. It's not you're going to get there and wake up one day and, oh, I've got it all solved. But asking
exactly.
those questions and going through those places, and that's where clients need support, because that's what astrology can allow us to translate for them, depending on how adequate their astrological knowledge is. Because it's never my job to talk astrology, my job's to speak English, because otherwise we're not communicating. But if somebody has an understanding of astrology, you go, well, the reason that's going on at the moment is you've got this, that, and the other going on, which then makes the myths and stuff. Now, you love all the myths, don't you?
Yeah, of course. I love all the
T-
myths. Yeah.
tell tell me about your myths, love.
I love all the myths, but also lately I'm also fighting a little bit with this. So basically, you see, I think this is about being Aquarius rising, that
Mm.
I can't be I can't have an identity that it's, of course I do have an identity, of course I do. But there is this sense of I don't want to be labeled, you know. Because as you were talking about this sense of developing the sense of spirituality, I realized that one of the struggles I had was that I had and I have probably, and I think we all, well, all maybe in different levels, is that astrology on the one hand, when you're saying, this is happening because you have this and because you have that, I'm like, what? Don't put me in a box, I am me. I am not the same as other people that are having, I don't know, Neptune going over here or that. I get this reaction. So for me, like the sense of freedom is very important, right? So to accept this idea that actually, no, we we are not so free. To me, it was a very, very difficult problem.
Well, freedom. I mean,
And
Aquarius
with
is
the
the sign of
myths,
freedom, and those Usagi planets, those are two
yeah,
signs of the zodiac most interested in freedom. Okay. And your answer that you got about freedom?
yes. Well, actually, I think actually it will set you free.
Right.
If we accept our place, it will set us free.
Mm.
This is we have the idea of freedom, right? Which is so idealized, and it's not. There's no absolute freedom. It's like such a fantasy.
Mm.
And so the more we accept that actually, yes, this because it's like you're saying with the spiritual journey, right? It doesn't end. So the more we accept that this is our patterns, it doesn't mean that we're gonna be stuck there because these patterns will have thousands, millions of different ways of expressing themselves. So the more we see the pattern, the more we are able to create expressions that might be richer and more fulfilling. But the first step is to see, yeah, okay, this is what I am, this is who I am,
Mm.
right? And so with the myths, for instance, I love the myths, of course, I love the myths. I always say I read the Iliad when I was 15. I realized I don't think it's true
Hmm.
because I reread it last year, and I was reading it, and I was like, I don't think I could read this when I was 15. Probably I read like a version, like an adaptation of the
Mm.
Iliad,
Hmm.
and it opened up this whole world, right, to Greek mythology. The problem I have now is because I'm from Argentina,
Hmm.
and I think there is this kind of love for Greek mythology,
Hmm.
as if the Greek myths could explain the whole of experience of being human. And I
Hmm.
think it's a bit like I think now that we are more and more aware of different cultures and different realities,
Hmm.
I think it could be interesting to step a little bit out of Greek mythology and try to see that there are other myths and that not everything might be explained by Greek mythology. If you read Liz Green, for instance, I was reading now
Mm.
Jupiter's book by Liz Green. She
Mm.
uses a lot of Greek mythology, but she also brings other mythologies. She's not stuck only with Greek mythology. And I think this should be the approach. Okay, Greek mythology can give us some ideas to think about this. But this is my question. What comes first? The astrological meaning
Mhm.
or the myth that is associated with the meaning? It's like, do we have the myth of Hermes and then we associate it with Mercury, with the planet Mercury, I mean, what the planet Mercury means, and then myths are developed from that. I think my internet connection is still.
Yeah, it
Am I
went a
there?
little bit wobbly. So have we got Hermes and Mercury? What do we have first? Yes.
Yeah. Do we have
Hmm.
first the astrological Mercury
Hmm.
and then the myths around Hermes?
Hmm.
Or do we have first the myths about Hermes and we put them on
Well, yeah, but
astrological?
there's a lot of projection goes on in astrology, and then what I find amazing though is over the years, it sort of changes to suit the people that are practicing it. It isn't like the Bible, which even then we can make an argument about that as well, that this is what the Lord said and that is how it's supposed to be, because there's all different religions that will follow the Bible and whatever description. And that's where there's a fine line between astrology being a belief system of some description but not a religion, because we don't
Mm.
have a person at the top going where it all comes, because the 99.9% of religions is a bloke and he gets inspired and then people follow him. But astrology isn't that, because you can't date astrology back to one person, because it had already existed and it was the Babylonians were looking up at the sky and making correlations and stuff. But I think, and then especially since the outer planets were discovered, that trashed astrology for quite a while. Uranus
Yeah.
gets discovered in Bath, where I live, which is lovely, and then everybody's going, oh, what do we do with that planet? So they had to sort of readapt things. Um, but because you've obviously read Richard Tarnas's
Yeah.
Cosmos and
Cosmos and
Psyche.
Psyche.
Yeah, so he discusses all of those, how the outer planets represent collective experiences in art and music and war and politics, etc., that we don't have a control over. There's no control that can
Yeah.
happen in that. And astrology is also just like your journey that you're going to have your spiritual. Astrology is never ending as well. You can every week you can learn something new.
Totally. Yeah. 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 Totally. Because these are symbols, right? Every time you
Yes.
engage with them. And that's why I think sometimes it's tricky, this passion, this love for Greek mythology.
Mm.
Because then we look at Jupiter, and the only thing we think about is the Greek myths of Zeus and how he was behaving, right? And I'm thinking maybe there are more possible experiences of Jupiter. Maybe there are other variants, other versions that the Greeks did not think about. And I can understand, of course, that the astrology we practice was born in a Hellenistic environment. So the link with Greek mythology is solid and strong. Of course, I can understand this.
Mm.
But nowadays, this kind of astrology is being practiced by people like me from Argentina, people from China. I have a lot of students that are from China, people from Mexico. And, for instance, Mexico, they have a very rich mythology, a very rich. So and if this truly, if the planets are really archetypes, it means that these planetary archetypes should be present in every culture around the world. So, but maybe they may manifest in different ways, right? So the Jupiter principle, which is about, I don't know, moral or beliefs or a kind of guiding principle,
Hmm.
maybe in other cultures it was expressed in a different way.
Yeah.
And because we're in love with the Greek mythology, we miss this possibility of exploring that. I think
Yeah.
there are very few astrologers who, Liz Green is one of the exceptions, I think, which is amazing, of course. Yeah.
Mhm. I didn't myself go through the Greek god thing. That wasn't my experience of astrology.
Ah,
Yeah, I was taught by a computer program.
wow, wow.
I bought a £10 CD so I was running on Windows 90, and it had an explanation. The text was written by somebody who isn't an astrologer but is a writer. He's passed now, but he'd got lots of books, and he was doing the whatever the word is, the text that was in the computer program, and that was how I learned. Then obviously I've also read books as well, but I extensively learnt on this, which was Equal House, which I didn't know what that was until much later. And he'd sort of say, occasionally he'd mention, this is a Greek god and did that, la 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 la, but it wasn't tons of that. Yeah. So my astrology was much more practical. I was working with clients that were coming for homeopathic treatment, alternative therapies and stuff, and then I'd construct their chart and I'd go, oh well, I'm hardly surprised that you've got this, that, and the other going on at the moment. This will last this amount of time. And so it helped
Wow.
me, yeah, helps and still helps me understand somebody. If I've got their chart and I've got it reasonably accurate, then I'll know, oh, well, I shouldn't, if this is a Leo client, I need to make sure that they are the center of attention and I'm not, combating them with somebody else. So I think, and I also think it's important that we don't minimize how important sun sign astrology is, because I'm basically a sun sign astrologer. Obviously, I can do a chart and I know where everything is. And I think that's what's quite clever, that in the years that astrology has existed, the signs of the zodiac and the symbols and how you'd expect someone to be being that sign of the zodiac has reasonably stayed the same, regardless of myths and etc., but the signs of
Yeah,
the zodiac.
exactly.
Yeah. And I think most people are agreed on that. But just having sun sign, that was my light bulb moment when I discovered I'd even got a flipping chart. I thought I was this sign of the zodiac. No, I've got this ascendant and that moon and this Mercury and stuff. And I think that for a lot of people, when they learn astrology, they don't realize, that's a light bulb moment as well. This is other stuff to consider. And then also, then we're part of the cosmos. We're not separate to it. We have a
Hmm.
chart, and all of these planets are part of our teeny weeny little solar system. When you look out at the night sky, it's minuscule, it's pretty small. So I think astrology can also help us understand that we're not. I love the way that you say that, we're not solitary. What was your actual word? So you're never truly alone because of the planets. Well, you're not, in a way. So I think that's true. There's all these other bits to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Of course, because in my journey, because I feel so not dispossessed, because it's a bit too extreme, but kind of I have this sense of being alone all the time because I have no sense of home. It's very hard for me to find this sense of home. And even
Hmm.
when I say home is about connecting with other people, it's for me it's not easy to connect with other people. I see that people connect easily with me, but there's a part of me that it's a little bit always reserved. And so this was a huge thing for me. So once I was in a retreat with some shamans taking ayahuasca, and what I saw, what I experienced was this kind of vast landscape. And I was kind of waking up and I was looking at the sky and I was seeing the lights of the sky. And I said, yeah, these are my companions, if you engage with the sky, yes, you will never feel abandoned, even in the worst of scenarios. Well, I don't know, maybe I haven't lived the worst of scenarios, but again, it has to do with this idea of acceptance. This idea, these are our companions and they have a role, and our role is to accept that they are the ones who are telling us, guiding us. Yeah.
Mm. And
Which is very hard. We like in this world we have this idea of these are my rights and these are my, and of course I'm in favor of democracy and having rights and all of these things, right? Uh, but I think sometimes we build an identity of what it is to be an individual that it's a little bit too self-centered. And this guy, like you're saying, astrology helps us to engage with something much, much bigger. And what's interesting at the same time is that astrology puts us in the center, because in some ways you would say, you're saying that the entire universe is going around you, giving you a message of who you are. Yes, at the same time, this puts us in the center.
yes, there's a lot around us for sure. It is, I think it's quite possible to have two totally different concepts to something, have
Yeah.
two different ideas. Um, and and also, yeah, see, I haven't studied as much as you, so I haven't had to give as much thought to various different concepts and stuff. Yeah, so I'm not knocking your knowledge. However, I haven't had to quite often think about those types of things. I've more lived a life where some rather nasty things have happened and I've survived them, etc. And astrology's given me not why it happened, but what was else going on when those things were occurring, and also how long will they last for, which is transit. But I come
Yes.
from a Catholic family and I rejected that in my teens. And I think what happens to some ex-Catholics is they then, if they're not careful, replace the Catholicism that they've rejected with some other, inverted commas, belief system.
Hmm.
And yeah, because there's also, I have got a couple of Aquarius planets. I've got Venus and Mars in Aquarius, and I've got Venus and Mars opposition to Uranus. So I'm quite
Ah,
comprehending of the wanting to be different and not not wanting to be normal, inverted commas. However, going back to your sun sign being in the fourth and the family being important, you haven't reached the stage yet. And it's different when that happens because it might not happen. Were it to happen that you become a parent yourself,
uh-huh.
you'll probably discover more about what home is. because
Mm.
we go through different experiences in life, and I was one of five children. My parents were busily having kids all over the place. That's Catholics for you. And I'm the middle child. And then I rejected all that, and I didn't get on with my mother. And then I became a mother myself. So all the things I'm rejecting in my mother, I now realise, like, well, that's why she was that way. And then I realised it wasn't my mother at all. I've got sun and the moon square. So when I learnt that in astrology, oh well, that makes sense then. So I was rejecting the image of mother, which is something internal to me. So when you go more deeply into astrology, you understand the projections that you'll put onto other people, and astrology allows us
Wow. Yeah.
the release so that we don't have to stress about that anymore. And I think that's where it's particularly valuable, especially when you study your own chart. I mean, I can do a reading for someone and I can give them a bit of guidance towards things, but it's different to actually doing your own chart and experiencing it. Yeah.
Totally. Or a client that maybe comes more than once.
Yeah.
You can help them more see how this projection is working, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. With your chart, it's like because if we study our chart and we are paying attention to our projections, yes, it becomes. But it's a very good idea. It's a beautiful idea what you've shared. Thank you so much. This idea of my sense of family would probably change if I had children. Yeah.
Yeah, because then you'll have whatever version of family you want to have. Because I mean, I'd come from this enormous family, I only had one kiddie. So his child, he's an only child. So he's got no experience of millions of siblings and competition and la la la. But we're a very close family. Is that what we said? My sister's I'll just tell you quickly. My sister's a poet, and she wrote a poem about the fact that we had family prayers. So every night, God bless Mama, God bless Dada, God bless, and it goes on and on. And anyway, she does a poem about it, and she's adapted it and made it not true because it's a poem and sort of like, Mary's really naughty and I'm really good, which never happened in real life. But anyway, um, there was this thing preached to us from a very early age that the family that prays together stays together. And there were a lot of upsetments within the family, people having kids out of wedlock and marrying people that weren't Catholic and la 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 la. And so I also think that helping a client explore, what they have in their chart and how they relate to, because it's the personal world that's important. If we've had a difficult relationship with our parents, that sets us up to not have an easy life. So, if you were a client, I'd probably be desperate to see your parents' charts and see where the connections were or weren't. Um, but if I think that when you explore your own chart and also the other people that were close to you when you're growing up, why am I so different to a sibling? Why don't I get along with my parents? And then when I did my mother's chart, because it took us ages to find out her time of birth, I found out she got exactly the same moon sign to me, moon in Gemini, but hers is in the 12th and mine is in the 10th. So those are two different locations. So then her life for me made much more sense for me. And then I knew how to then relate to her much better. So I think sometimes that if we go more deeply into our charts, we can understand us and others, which I think is important, understanding people.
Totally. Yeah. Because I think sometimes it happens when clients want me to do a synastry chart. And I tell them, okay, you both have to come to the session. So different
Yeah.
astrologers approach this differently, right?
Mhm.
And for me, it's important for them both to come. And they're like, no, but he or she doesn't believe in this. It's just, but we can have a look. And I'm like, look, if this other partner is not going to be here, we can just work with your chart because whatever experience you're having with this partner is in your chart. All we have to do is be able to go deep. No, I don't know what to say deep because it sounds like otherwise you're not being deep, but to be able to kind of put the lens that we're to look for this answer that we're asking into your chart, into your transits, and it should be there. If
Mm.
astrology works, it should be there. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, unless you're born in the UK, nobody knows what time of day they're born. So annoying.
Yes,
And
it's
you've
so
even got a
annoying.
discrepancy because you thought that you were born at a certain time, and then so how did you discover the difference? How did that come about? So first of all, you thought you were a particular time, and then the other time became
Yes.
evident. When
So
did you
I
discover
always
the other
had
time?
the experience that some transits I was feeling like they had already happened.
Right.
I always had this experience like, yeah, but this is what happened 2 years ago, not what's happening now. Not
Hmm.
like too far ago, maybe 1 year or 2 years ago.
Hmm.
And I spoke about it with many astrologers, and they were all telling me, because you're so mature, you have Saturn exalted, so you kind of, instead of running away from experiences, you go to embrace experience. And I was like, no, this doesn't make sense. Come on, because even when you are mature, which I'm not sure if I am, but even if you are self-aware, when you have a difficult transit, it's difficult. Even if you know what it means, it's when you have a difficult transit, it's difficult. So come on, this didn't make sense. And I wanted to have a session with an astrologer from Argentina, Alejandra Eusebi,
Hmm.
who I admire so much. And I wanted to have a session with her because every once in a while I want to see what other astrologers see in my chart. It helps me to open up the way I see it. And the first thing she asked me was like, "Are you sure you have the right time?" Because she knows me, right?
Yeah.
So she was like, "Are you sure you have the right time?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm quite sure. I've been an astrologer for a while. I'm quite sure I've checked." So she says, "Ask your mother. How does she know?" So I have it in the date in the birth certificate. So I
Hmm.
asked my mom, and she's like, "No, I think it's the wrong time." I'm like, Mom, I've been doing astrology for 20 years. I mean, not doing, but I studying at least
Hmm.
astrology for 20 years. Now you tell me. It's like, now you tell me this. So she started going over all of the papers and she found a little card from the hospital,
Hmm.
the right time. And the
Wow.
best thing is when we put the right time with this other astrologer, we made like a live history
Hmm.
and everything fitted perfectly. Like every event, I made a list of, I don't remember, 12 or 15 events.
Hmm.
They all fitted perfectly.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was. And also to me, it was a feeling when I saw the new chart, actually, it was quite a strange, like the experience because I saw the new chart and my feeling was of coming home. Like we say, I don't have a feeling of home.
Hmm.
I remember I saw the new chart and I say, yes, this makes sense. And it's just it's not such a huge difference, right? But
Hmm.
it really felt this kind of, yes, this is me. This is who I am. Yeah, so it was quite
That's
a nice
profound.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It is such a thing that they're not written on the birth certificate in the UK. So it's, yeah. It's
And
guesswork.
to me, it was a learning experience because I've always been against rectifying charts. I've always said, like, you don't need to rectify your chart. You have the chart that you need for the session. Because to me,
Hmm.
astrology is divination. So it's like you have the chart that you need. And
Hmm.
I still think this is kind of true. But then I also now realize how different experience it is when you have the rectified chart. So I'm like, well,
Hmm.
I think it's interesting the moment. I wonder if there was something in me that wasn't ready yet to know my true chart. So if there's something about, yeah, the previous charts were working because we're creating certain experiences that reflected what I was going through and that were building up until the moment that I met Alejandra and she asked me, "Are you sure this is your chart?"
Hmm.
So I saw the real chart and I was ready to take it. Otherwise, I would have rejected, perhaps.
Yes,
And
things do happen at the right time sometimes. Yeah. So now you're ready for that experience, which you might not have been before.
yeah,
Cool, cool. Thank you very much for talking with us today. So if people want to find you, they go to Alejo Lopez astrology.com. So it's ALEJOLOPEZ and then astrology.com. So that's where they'll be able to find you. You're also going to be at the Astrological Association and you're doing a talk
yes, I'm doing the final talk.
on the Sunday. Okay, which is about, just quickly tell us.
It's about artificial intelligence and love and how astrology may help us to make meaning of this moment because I think artificial intelligence will change the way we love, actually. Yeah.
Interesting. Super. So thank you very much for being with us today. I will put on the show notes how to contact you and where your details are. And it's been lovely talking with you today, Alejo. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure. Thank you.